Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about this amazing film called Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. As you can see, I have two copies of this film, which already says all you need to know about my opinion. I loved it. It combines top-tier action with a surprisingly good story. But first I need to say that you don't need to watch the prior Mad Max films in order to enjoy this one. I'm sure there are a lot of references to the older films, but I still haven't watched those films and I understood everything going on. So I'm sure you'll be fine as well. But what is the movie about? Well, it takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where water is scarce, the Earth has soured to the point that no plants can grow. Everyone is fighting to survive. Human decency is long gone, and everything and everyone gets reduced to property. Property of a select few, mind you, like our villain, Immortan Joe, who has burnt skin and needs a breathing mask, which he of course turns into a terrifying display of power. Like this. He has a fresh supply of water and food, thus he is in charge. He also captured the prettiest and healthiest women he could find, made them his personal wives, raped them, and to try and get a healthy boy out of them, to have a heir to his empire, basically. However, Joe's bus driver, Furiosa, helps the wives escape, and they want to go to the mythical green place, which, as the name suggests, plants are able to grow and there is peace. Joe is having none of it, however, and sends an armada of creatively designed vehicles and an army of men called war boys willing to die for him to go to Valhalla, which is basically Viking heaven, or Warboy heaven in this case. Our titular character, Max, a tortured lone wolf trying to find a righteous cause, as he says in the beginning of the film, only gets mixed up in all of this when Joe's forces capture him and use him as a literal blood bag stuck to the front of one of the assault vehicles to give blood to a sick warboy. A high-octane chase ensues, and Max and the warboy, Nux, find themselves on Furiosa's bus as well, or war rig as it's called in this film. They all need to get over the differences to escape Joe's rage and eventually get to the Green Place. A simple story seemingly set up to serve a mindless chase movie. And yes, there is a lot of action, but luckily it's some of the best action you'll ever see. Adrenaline-filled and fast-paced, but still clear. Practical explosions and stunts dominate the set pieces instead of complete computer-generated images, or CGI as it's called, like is the case in most contemporary blockbusters. Computers are still used a lot though, actually more than you would think, in order to replace backgrounds or add cars to a shot of a car exploding, because it would be too dangerous to have those cars around, and in other ways like that. And that's how I think CGI should be used, in ways so subtle you don't even notice it until you watch the behind the scenes on the Blu-ray and you see that yes, there is actually a lot of CGI used. And there's almost always something actually real in the shot that actually happened, and that's most of the time the core of that frame. And that's how I think it should be done, with something tangible to keep it looking realistic. All of this is because of the masterful director George Miller, who made sure that every detail that he focuses on gets paid off later in the film, and it's really satisfying to watch. Also, every shot, sound effect, and music cue is edited together to form a relentless chase experience. This movie did win the Oscar for editing, after all, and you can really see it. In terms of The way the story is told, it's very visual. And that's because the movie didn't actually have a script, just storyboards of the entire film. Those were actually created in 1998 or 99, I think, and for 12 years, the entire film was hanging in George Miller's office in the form of storyboards, so every time he came to work, he saw the film right there. So the movie was in his head for so long that when it came to actually filming and then editing Mad Max Fury Road, he knew exactly what elements and what shots he needed to bring his vision to the big screen. And you can see why. It is a really economic film and every single thing counts. The visual way that the story is told without much dialogue also makes sense in universe, because in the wasteland people aren't very social anyways. While the story seems to just be a vehicle for high-octane thrills, it does actually have some meat on its bones in the forms of deep world building and surprisingly relevant and sincere themes. The world building comes in the form of many details throughout the production design of the film. It didn't win an Oscar for production design for nothing, after all. All the small little details you can see definitely have some kind of backstory, and you can tell that they have a function in the world that Miller created. You don't see all of that in the actual film, but you can tell that it's there, and I think that's what makes this some really great and subtle world building. The themes themselves I'm not going to be specific about, because I want you to experience them firsthand. But I can tell you that Miller wanted to say something about the way that the world is going right now with global warming and all of that. And he does tell us how to handle that with a message, which at first is somewhat negative, but then later that same quote gets turned to have a positive meaning. And I thought that was a really creative way to tell something like that. The message itself is also surprisingly unique and refreshing, and also relevant for a Hollywood movie. If you didn't catch all of the subtleties of the film, or the subtext, or just want some more explanation about what the film is trying to say, I highly recommend this YouTube video from Rant and Bollocks. I'll show the title right here. Hopefully you can see it. I'll try to focus on it. Anyways, it's called Mad Max Fury Road Highway to Home Analysis and Explanation. It's on the channel Rant and Bollocks, and their entire playlist of film analysis is really good. I've watched all of them because I watched all of the films in this playlist except of this one. So I recommend you check that out after you watch the film if you want some more explanation. It's a little long-winded, but it's really well made. In conclusion, this is a wonderful chase film with an actual powerful story to tell, and it tells it well. Great direction, action, editing, cinematography, a great soundtrack. All of that comes together to create the perfect example of masterful filmmaking and craftsmanship. This is a piece of art and my favorite movie of the last decade. If you are a fan of action movies, you need to watch this right now. Now the matter of how you see this film. I would suggest you buy this movie on Blu-ray or another physical format like DVD. That's fine too, but I personally can't watch that stuff because of the inferior quality. But I would suggest physical media, and I'll tell you why. As you can tell, I am a fan of physical media and Blu-rays specifically, because I like to actually hold the movies I own in my hands and not be reliant on an internet connection to stream them. I also think it's important that these movies stay in print and that Blu-rays stay relatively cheap and don't become actual collector's items. You know, whenever there's a very expensive collector's edition of a film and that's the only way to watch a specific version, I just get fed up because that means that, you know, certain people won't be able to afford it because it's just so costly. And I don't want that to happen to every single Blu-ray. And for that to be avoided, this format will need all the help it can get, because of streaming and, you know, the competition on that end. The sales are down. I mean, let's be honest, who of you bought a Blu-ray in the last year? I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hear like maybe two of you bought a Blu-ray, maybe. So it's in dire need of some help. So even just buying this one film will support this format and will make sure that for future generations these movies will be available and preserved in their original form, because I don't really trust companies to restore these films in the future and make them readily available in original forms. They're probably going to change it or edit it somewhat to fit their agenda at that point. But that's just me being pessimistic, probably. So with that PSA out of the way about why you need to support physical media, which version of the movie on Blu-ray is the best? Well, I own three different discs, actually. There is a fourth Blu-ray, which is a 3D Blu-ray, which probably none of you have heard that before. I don't blame you, because it's almost completely irrelevant. I mean, I don't have a 3D TV, so that's the only Blu-ray version I don't have. But about the others, they all have the same Dolby Atmos True HD soundtrack, which is the highest quality you can get. Not even streaming can get this, even though they proudly claim that they have Dolby Atmos. It's not True HD, which means it's not lossless, and thus the quality is a bit lower. I don't actually notice that stuff. I'm sure most people won't either, but it is definitely there. The actual sound mixing itself is done really well. Another Oscar that this movie has won was sound mixing and sound editing. And you can truly see why, because the music is front and center just the way I like it, but the dialogue and sound effects still come through clearly, and it's very spectacular on a surround sound setup, which I have, and that's how I've always watched this film. Visually, however, my three copies are very different. The standard Blu-ray, which is included in all the other as a separate disc in all the other versions, is very colorful and vibrant, and you can really tell that they were going for a fiery look to the wasteland, which looks nothing like the actual desert in Namibia that this film was shot in, and that's all because of the amazing color grading. It can depend from TV to TV, though, how good that comes out, because I've tested this disc on two different TVs, and one of them had really over-exaggerated colors, and the red was a little too strong at some points, but I know that that's what that TV does. It just boosts reds a lot. And my other TV, which is a little bigger, is more desaturated, and you almost couldn't tell that they were going for that fiery red effect, and it just looked like a desert. So your mileage may vary there on how good the standard disc is. The 4K disc, however, once again, something you might not even know existed, 4K Blu-rays. I have got a 4K Blu-ray player, but honestly, the quality jump in resolution isn't enough to justify the ridiculously high price that 4K Blu-rays have in Belgium. You know, in other countries, they actually, drop in price after they first get released, which is normal, of course. But here in Belgium, no, 4Ks just stay at the same price they always do, which is too high, normally. But this one I found at MediaMarkt for a pretty good price, but it's not on there anymore for for that price. The 4K disc does make the detail a little more consistent in the resolution, and also the colors will be more consistent on every TV because it uses HDR. I'll show it again for that. HDR, which just tells your TV how the movie should look, so that on both TVs, if I had two 4K Blu-ray players and could hook them up, I would see about the same. But the price increase to me isn't worth the small detail increase that you get. And if you have a good TV, that Blu-ray version will look just fine. But there is a third disc, and that is my favorite. It is the black and white version of the film. Yeah, might seem really weird how I was raving on about the fiery nature of the desert, but it actually comes out really well in black and white. The cinematography is so vibrant that the contrast between light and dark is emphasized really well on black and white in a way that it isn't in the color version. And you can focus on the texture and the raw intensity of what is happening much more in this black and chrome edition, because there aren't that many distractions like the color. So I can actually see why this is George Miller's favorite version of the film. I also prefer this version, but that is only on that over-exaggerated TV I was talking about earlier. On that other TV, it looked a bit muted and dull, and it didn't have that good contrast, so that the standard version is still a little better. So your mileage may vary depending from TV to TV, and also just if you totally don't like black and white, but I really love it, and it's my favorite version of the film. It surprisingly pulls you into the reality of what is happening much more. So that was my little review. Hope you enjoyed it, and as one final takeaway, buy this release. It includes the black and white disc and the color disc on standard Blu-ray. It's not too expensive. It's at this point €16 at bol.com, which might seem a little expensive, but you get both versions of the film. But of course, if you already know you're not going to watch the black and white version, then just buy the standard Blu-ray release. Or if you don't have a Blu-ray player or PS4, first and foremost, get one or try to get one. But if you can't do that, just support it on DVD even if you have to, or just legally buy it through any other means that you can. Thanks for watching. That was it. I hope you enjoyed the film, and I hope you watch it, of course. Bye.